Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carolyn if you're new here, and we are doing the mid-year freakout book tag about all the books I've read thus far, what I want to read, what are the standouts, what are the disappointments. I've looked at the list and I'm not someone that could just pick one book for each question, so I'm doubling up, but that's fine. I've read a lot so far this year and I just can't narrow them down. And it's already giving me this dark foreshadowing anxiety about narrowing down my top books of the year, and we're 6 months out. So let's just get started. First question, best book you've read so far in 2021? Now, I'm not going to mention it 100 times, but I just have to put it out there. Yes, Piranesi is top tier, one of the best books I've read this year. You will be seeing it again at the end of the year. But other than that, in terms of books that are doing something new and exciting and are really standouts in that respect, Freshwater by Piranesi has also been a highlight of my reading year. Just in the sense that it was enjoyable to read, it was interesting, it was new, the narrative style was something completely unique to me, but also the writing was incredible. So that book by Piranesi is absolutely also going to be featured on my top books of the year. Question 2, best sequel you've read so far in 2021. So this year I have not read a lot of sequels, so this question's easy because one of the sequels I read happens to also be my least favorite book of the year. And then the other sequel that I read I did enjoy, and that was The Likeness in the Dublin Murder Squad series by Tana French. I read the second book. I think it's a six book series. I might be wrong, but I'm excited to continue on in that. Grace from GK Reads says she's going to start a little Dublin Murder Squad book club, so I will be starting obviously in a few months once I get to the third book, but I'm really loving it and I will wait until then to catch up on the third one. But those are books that are like my little dose of mystery thriller because I don't read that often and I really only want that from Tana French. Like, nobody else can do it like that. Question 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. I know Mona just came out. I'm not sure the author's name, but it sounds a little bit Moshfeghian in tone. So that one sounds really interesting. And then, what's another one? So let's just say that one for now. That's one like the top of my head that I just added to my Goodreads TBR. But really, if you're curious about that, just go to like my Goodreads and scroll about ones that I'm adding when I'm just bored and have a chance to go on Goodreads and scroll through like the new upcoming books. But that is one I will be reading soon, I hope. Question 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I don't know if this book is coming out in 2021 or 2022, but I'm very excited about Sally Rooney's new book. Obviously, I really enjoyed Normal People. I was, reading it last as per usual, but I read it in March and was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. Really kind of like the narrative style again, and the tone of the book is what I so enjoyed. And even like the content, talking about mental health and about what we owe to each other, but maybe needing somebody in your kind of adolescence or young adult years, but then not being able to grow with them. So it definitely is not just like a romance. It is a little bit like steamy at some points, but don't diminish it. It's not just like millennial fiction. It is, but also like, what's wrong with that? Nothing. Okay. Question 5, biggest disappointment. So I previously alluded to Find Me by Andra Osman. That was a big disappointment in the sense that I loved Call Me By Your Name, one of my top books of last year. If I was on YouTube last year, that would have been in my kind of top 10. And Find Me was horrible. Horrible. I can't even get into it again, but that book was cringy, uncomfortable, had none of the vulnerability and beauty that Call Me By Your Name had. Don't know what happened there. So that was a disappointment in the sense that I expected perfection. Another book that was a disappointment, again because of the hype, I think was Open Water for me. I just read it, haven't even talked about it yet. I will talk about it in my June books. It's just not my style, I think, and I understand why people love that book. That's a book that is absolutely well written. The themes are so beautiful and so powerful. The actual writing was way too flowery for me, there was nothing for me to like grasp onto. It's just not a book that's my style, but I know people love it and I understand why, but not for me. Another book that was a disappointment. Oh, Sorrowland by River Solomon. Again, a disappointment because I loved The Deep. I read that last year. Again, would have been on my top books of the year. And Sorrowland, way too messy, way too much going on. The themes I felt got lost in the weirdness, and you got to have a balance there. That's what I've learned. Okay. 6, biggest surprise. I would say 1, Lent by Jo Walton. I knew I would love it because 15th century Florence, Girolamo Savonarola, and the drama with the Borgias, that screams me. So I loved it for all the reasons I expected, but it surprised me because that book has some surprises. And it goes somewhere I was not expecting, so I loved it for many reasons, more than I was anticipating. Yeah, let's just stick with Lent. That was a fantastic book. Question 7, favorite new author, debut, or just new to you? Do you even have to ask? Of Tessa Moshberg. I have read this year My Year of Rest and Relaxation, Homesick for Another World, and Eileen. I've thoroughly enjoyed all of them. I think that's like something I was needing, that like nitty-gritty, dark portrayals of women struggling in the world. And I think nobody does that better than Moshberg, so I have enjoyed all of them. There's a few more on my list to go for, like Death in Her Hands, McGlue, I think are her other two, and then she has something else in the works. I know. Jalen's very, very excited. So yeah, I just have enjoyed everything I've read by her so far, so I'm excited to stick on that trend. Question 8, newest fictional crush. Okay, Piranesi. His descriptions of like the shells and his long, beautiful hair, and I can just imagine him like prancing around the labyrinth. Love him. Girolamo Savonarola, something about him. I don't know. Who else do I have a crush on? I've read some dark some dark literature this year. I don't know. Guys, I gotta say it. I am scared of Henry, but like he does have that dark academia vibe that if I saw him, I'd do a double take, right? I don't love him, but I'm intrigued. There's like no one else for me to love in all my books. That's not great. So I would say Girolamo Savonarola. He's interesting. He has some secrets. And Piranesi because he's, I imagine in my mind, stunning and very vulnerable and beautiful and loving. So those are my 2. 9, newest favorite character. I gotta say Eileen is a great character to read about. Again, don't want to be friends with her. A little bit scared. She's a little bit uneasy. But an absolute delight to read about, right? Like that's kind of my thing. If I don't love a character, like want to be friends with them, think they're an amazing person, I also love to read about people that are on the opposite side of the spectrum that I don't want to know, don't want to talk about, but that they exist in the world, so it's okay to read about them and to give them their moment too. So newest favorite character, other than Eileen. Oh, what's her name? In My Sister the Serial Killer, the sister, the actual killer, I think is a great character, even though we don't see from her perspective, just watching her. I think that's, again, a really well-written character. So those can be my 2. 10, a book that made you cry. So this is easy. Only one book has made me cry so far this year. Never Let Me Go was almost there, but that's more of like a quiet, resigned, like numb sadness. A numbing sadness. A book that made me actually cry. Transcendent Kingdom by Ghajar. I just read that. I don't know if it was like a specific moment in time that I was just feeling emotional, but that book was beautiful. It's discussions around addiction and mental illness and familial love and bonds. Like, stunning. Really, really beautiful and so heartbreaking. So that's the only one that made me cry. 11, a book that made you happy. So again, not too many. I mean, the Pisces made me happy during some of it. Does that count? Some of it I was laughing. Some of it I was scared. I guess that's one that made me happy, just like absolutely entertained. But then 2 books that made me just genuinely happy are both of the Austen novels I've read this year. That's Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. Just kind of that high drama but not high stakes. A lot of familial love but also like bitchy banter at balls. And a lot of humor that I did not expect but I should have from growing up on those movies. But just once you see those movies and then you see the dialogue written, or just kind of the absurdity of social responsibilities, yeah, it's just really entertaining, and those books made me happy. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. Okay, so one of the first books that is stunning. Guys, like this book did everything. So this is the cover, which is obviously stunning, but then even the actual book has the gold columns with the title, and then even the inside cover of all like the little treasures that you can find in this house. Stunning. So that's a beautiful book. And then also another one of my favorites of the year, Pew by Catherine Lacey, is a cloth bound book that's kind of has the old wear and tear. So I think this is also a beautiful addition. Okay, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I think, let me think. So maybe it's because I'm just coming off of reading the Women's Shortlist, the Women's Prize Shortlist. That's all new releases. So I kind of want to get back to some Backless Babies. I have a lot just sitting on my shelf and I want to make sure I'm also prioritizing them. So maybe to just find a better balance there. But also I want to prioritize going for books from authors that I have established that I love. So I want to go back and read a lot more Vandermeer, a lot more Toni Morrison, because all of the books that I read of hers last year, I think 3 out of the 4 would have been in my top books of the year. And then I would love to go and give another try to River Solomon, their book, what's it called? I'll put the name here. But that book sounds really interesting. More Moshberg, of course. What else? I still need to read A Little Life. So basically just going back to books that I have on my shelf and that are not brand new releases, but that I've had and wanted to read for a long time, and making sure I'm also prioritizing them. And then I also want to kind of, even this summer, make sure I'm getting back to bigger books, because I've read a few big books in the past few weeks and I have forgotten that feeling of getting like totally absorbed in a book and in a world for a long period of time. It's sometimes nice to read a book in like a few days and you're ready to move on to the next thing, and those can still be favorites of mine, but I'm really missing kind of sinking into a book for a long time. So I think some of those could be perfect for that, like The Luminaries. Should we just do like a summer TBR? Let's just do a summer TBR. I really would like to get to the Broken Earth Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I've mentioned those books before on my channel, and I've just not dedicated the time to getting into a big, thick trilogy, but I'm ready. That's what summer's for. So hopefully, maybe I could start one in June, maybe July, we'll see. But I'm expecting greatness from those books. People love them, and I do really enjoy sci-fi and like a little bit of fantasy weirdness, but everyone says that the book has so much depth to it. It's not just a wild fantasy world. So I'm very excited about that. Again, I really want to continue on my Austen journey. I wanted to read all of her not published novels this year, and I've only read 2. I have Emma on my shelves, and I think we have probably all the other books somewhere in my house. My mom is a big Austen fan. So to get back into those and make sure that I'm just reading books that are bringing me joy in the summer. So like I said, more Vandermeer. I have 5 of his books currently on my shelves, and he has absolutely cemented himself as one of my favorite authors. So to jump back into him, jump back into Toni Morrison. Again, like, these authors have such an incredible backlist selection, so I want to make sure I'm prioritizing those as well. And then what else for a summer TBR? Maybe a romance, but probably not. Isn't that like the best time to read romance during the summer? That's just not my vibe. But I also want to make sure that I have this notebook, and I had been taking very detailed notes at the beginning of books that I've read, and I have fallen out of the habit. So I have all the notes stored on my phone from probably 50 books, and I would love to go back and put them in this notebook, just because then it's like easier to recall and think about books, to talk about them for wrap-ups, and then I feel like I'm using a little bit of my school brain to annotate and think about books in a deeper sense. So that's something to do as well. And then continue on in the Neapolitan series by Ferrante. I've read My Brilliant Friend, so continue on there. I think those are good summer books. The atmosphere of Naples, this little community, but also to get sucked into a little world, a little microcosm where so much is going on. Love that feeling. Going back, and after loving freshwater so much, I would love to read The Death of Ivik Oj by Akwaeke Emezi. Going back and reading Homegoing by Agassi. So again, I think I want to prioritize reading from authors I know that I love and that have been some of the most powerful books in my reading experience, but then also getting into some big fat books and just getting sucked into a world. That's what summer's for. And I just miss that. I miss kind of returning to a book for even like a week or more. So that is my tentative summer TBR. Please share what you would like to read during the summer, because I'm always looking for something new to read, but I would love to get into some big fat books on my shelf, and authors that I've established are my favorites. But yes, please let me know what your, let's just do bullet points, rapid fire. Your favorite book of the year so far, and a book that has really surprised you, whether for good or for bad. I would love to know. Just tell me your favorites though. Keep them coming. I would like to add things to my TBR. And maybe some backlisters. Send me some backlist recommendations, because I have a lot of new releases, but your girl needs to take a break on buying hardbacks. That's all I will say. But yes, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye everyone.